You're listening to the Jam Price Show, all about movies. And today, my guests are writer-directors Thomas and Charles Gard, and we're going to be talking about their new film, very exciting film, Deadshot. Welcome to the show, Thomas and Charles. Nice to have you here.
Very nice to be here.
Thank you. Are you able to see me yet?
Thanks so much for having us on the show.
Oh, you're welcome. We're having a little technical difficulty here, but hopefully it'll all work out. This movie is absolutely, and I don't say this lightly, it is an excellent film. It really is. It is taut. It holds your attention. There's a lot to it. And I can't wait to do a deep dive and dig into this film. So our listeners know a little bit about this film. Either Thomas or Charles, either one of you can jump in and let the audience know what Deadshot is all about. Who would like to go? Thomas, I'll just pick on you, Thomas.
Deadshot's about it's a revenge story. And it's about a Irish paramilitary whose wife is killed in an ambush that goes wrong, and he swears to find the British soldier responsible, and that takes him to London in the mid-70s when there was a huge campaign of violence from a bombing campaign by the IRA in London, and the Irish paramilitary his only way of getting hold of this soldier is to engage in more violence, and that journey starts to make him question his motives and actually what he really wants. But by then it's actually too late, because he's already poked the hornet's nest and started to make the British soldier angry in turn. So there's a kind of a crossover between the two of them, with unexpected consequences, I would possibly say.
You know, it brought, obviously, this film, is taking place in the 1970s when it was the height of everything that was going on between the IRA and England. But you just see the futility of so much of this, and that's what you've really represented it so beautifully. There are no heroes in this film. You don't know even, so many films we watch like this, and you're rooting for someone. And in this film, it's just kind of, you're rooting for everyone in a way, but there's just no heroes. There's no winners in this film, more losers than winners. And that's the tragedy of this movie, and it's so well done. Such a great cast. I really want to dig into this cast. First, how did this project come to you, to both of you? Charles, how did
we were sent it by Chris Cohen, the producer, and it was an early draft of a project called Borderland that had been written by Ronan Bennett, and we loved the genre. We loved the idea of a revenge story, and we loved the period of the 70s, and we've always been fascinated by stories about the Troubles. We kind of grew up with on our mother's side of the family, we have a lot of Irish family, so we've always kind of been drawn to the sort of ambiguity and the duality of the kinds of characters that got caught up in this, and yeah, as you say, I mean, there are no heroes. We've really, that was something that we really wanted to kind of feed that into the story, so that you really didn't know who to root for, that you could kind of be rooting for one person and then switch your allegiance to the other, because we felt that was very true to it was very true to how we experienced the violence of the time in the 80s, when we were growing up as children. So yeah, I mean, that was kind of, we latched on and sort of really tried to kind of hone the story down into a really simple but compelling narrative, really, that tried to sort of look at the characters and look at the story in universal themes, you know, so themes of revenge and where it takes them, as opposed to the political. We didn't really want to get too caught up in the politics of everything, or explaining the politics of everything, because really what interests us about the story is it's happening now. You know, it's kind of the same thing is happening now in countries, you know, not just in America, but in the UK, in Europe. I mean, it's a very dangerous time, and there are kind of a handful of powerful, often men, who are controlling kind of younger, more sort of perhaps more innocent men and kind of corralling them into doing terrible things. So it's important. We felt it was a really important story to kind of, you know, tell from that point of view.
It is an important story to tell, and it is universal. You're exactly right. It is universal, and it is so timely for the climate we're all living in today. Also, that's just, you know, any moment it could be a powder keg again, you know, and in many places it still is. I loved, and I really want to get into the production design, the cinematography, the colors that were used, how you evoked the feel of 1970s, which always in movies, and even in movies you watch from that era, had really a dark underbelly in so many of those films, and this one does also. So Thomas, tell me a little bit about how you decided to film it, and how you did work with your DP and you know, and your production designer, because it's just beautifully shot. I mean, there was the lighting, just really so well done, and just, yeah, it evoked this feeling of the futileness of it all again too, just by the way the production design is. So we thought, let's talk a bit about that.
Well, our production designer did an amazing job, Tom Sayer, and we worked very closely with him, going through lots of references from the 70s, street photography, but also cinematic references and other films. And together with him, we thought it was really interesting to strip out all the color apart from red, and to really just focus on flashes of red through the film. So we really limited the palette. I mean, obviously, if we were in Northern Ireland, what was said as Northern Ireland, you would get the greens of the woods and the trees, but some natural colors we left as they were, but we were really keen to strip out artificial colors, like human colors, to just beiges and browns, keep the beiges and browns, and then have these pops of red. And it was quite exciting, and it felt quite scary in a way, and when you see those flashes of red, and quite disturbing.
Yeah, it is.
And then
go ahead.
And then Matthias Ruud was our cameraman, and he's a Swedish cameraman, and we did a lot of masses of scouting with him in Scotland, in Glasgow, and and outside of Glasgow, and it was just great seeing he reacted very emotionally to certain locations, and then with the time of year that we were shooting in, which was winter, January and February, it also lent just a very grim, overcast, rainy, drizzly, damp feel to the film, and that was something that we really wanted. We couldn't imagine shooting the story in summer, for instance, with trees out, with leaves on the trees. We were really concerned to shoot it in the winter, and actually right at the end, spring was bursting out, and it was quite frustrating. We were like racing to get certain exteriors done before buds started showing.
But yeah, kind of focusing on the smoke as well. I mean, that was the one thing, smoke and wet downs. We just
Yeah.
wherever possible, we just kind of made it really wet and dreary and smoky.
Yeah, it just, as I said, it owns it so much. And I love the end. And just the end when you just, I don't know if I want to even let everybody know, but just that end scene when it's just the cup, it's all, I'll just say it's all red, and that was just also says a whole lot too.
Yeah.
About the film. Yeah. And it was just, and the particular color of red that you chose too. I think that was, just, it was spectacular. It was the perfect color. As we go into the credits from there. Yeah.
Saying all the right things there, Jan.
Yeah.
Thank
We
you.
had a lot of conversations about the color, that tone of red at the end.
I'm sure you did, because there's so many
Yeah.
tones of red. I love red.
Yeah.
I wear red a lot.
Yeah.
But that was it. It was just, I loved this movie. I really did. I have to just tell you, I see a lot of movies, as you know, and a lot, when I saw the title Deadshot, I'm thinking, oh God, it's going to be another one of these, and I won't even get into what I thought it was going to be. And then when I watched the trailer, and I went, oh, it's completely different. And the name to me was like, did connote again some of these other films that are out there. And ironically, a friend of mine, I said, I had just watched this movie, and he said, do you know what a Deadshot is? And I said, well, I do now, because I just watched the movie. And then I said, but do you know? So he knew exactly what it was. So I'm sure to certain people, this title will make sense, that it will resonate with them.
We hope so.
Yeah.
We hope so.
Yeah. Interesting. Cast. I love this cast. First of all, I'm madly in love with Mark Strong. I will go see anything that Mark Strong is in. He's always terrific in everything he does. He's just right on. And I absolutely adore him. And his biography, just goes on and on and on and on, too, of all the films he's been in. And I'm sure everybody else will recognize Mark Strong when they see him in this film. And of course, Felicity Jones. And I do want to talk about them, but Colin Morgan, who you love the close-ups of him, which one of you directed that? And
we were blown away. I mean, Colin comes from where the film begins in South Almar, so he really knew this character. He really knew the kind of the world, and he poured a tremendous amount into that performance, and it was an extraordinary thing to sort of for us to watch, because we knew how fortunate we were really to sort of be able to see his thoughts and kind of look into his eyes, and just when the camera was on him, you felt the sadness and the pain of his history, and that for us that was very, very important, because it's it's a tremendous responsibility telling stories set at this time, because so many people's lives were kind of affected by these troubles.
And you do see it's a really wonderful performance by Colin Morgan. There really is. And because so much of acting, as many people know, is internal, and it is how your facial expressions and how you portray that. And as I said, he's a wonderful at doing that, and brilliant performance. And again, the camera work really caught that, in his performance. So excellent. And then there's Ameen. Is that how you say it? Ameen?
Amel Ameen.
Yeah, Amel Ameen, and he's also wonderful in this too. Talk a little bit about the casting and how you brought this cast together. Thomas, why don't you tell me a little bit about how you did that?
Well, we had Amel. We were thrilled when Amel wanted to jump on, and he also connected to the story in a very deep way through his own background and his own personal history, his parents' generation, and was really interested in exploring ideas of identity in London at that time in the 70s. And we had many conversations with him before the film began, and it was a great process.
He did a film for Idris Elba called Yardi that we had seen, and we were really we thought that his performance in that was excellent.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what sort of got us.
Well, I'm also in love with Idris Elba and anything he does also. So I will watch it. Yeah. And I do remember him from that film. Really interesting performance. These two names, Ameen and Colin Morgan, are not household names that people would know at this point, but I guarantee you that they will be as their careers begin to, unfold more and more. But I want to talk about, how did you attract Mark Strong and Felicity Jones for her, a somewhat minor role. So how did you attract her to this project? Because she's also wonderful. I love her too.
Yes, it's amazing. We were really, really lucky with she came on the project really first as a producer, as a kind of executive producer, but she was working in that capacity through her company Pycross Pictures, and we were very lucky that we were able to kind of then talk to her about the role of Catherine and see whether she was up for it really, and she was kind of she just got more and more intrigued, and it wasn't a huge time commitment for her in terms of the on-screen hours. So she said she was game for it, which was amazing, because it really it really allowed having sort of somebody like that, an Oscar nominated actress playing a sort of supporting role really allowed us to sort of explore this extraordinary supporting cast, with Mark Strong and Tom Vaughan Lawler, another great actor. We were able to sort of then put together this kind of world really, with these just amazing actors who could take us on this journey into their characters in such intriguing and emotional, but also kind of economic ways, because we just didn't, we were so up against it with sort of time and money, that everything kind of got shrunk down. We were sort of, page count just had to constantly shrink. The script began at sort of over 100 pages, and I think by the end it was 79 or something. It was just sort of like we just kind of had to just jettison stuff throughout, because we just didn't have the time or the money to shoot it. So having, and that was just an amazing luxury, having actors as good as we had, because we were able to sort of get across ideas and do things silently that we would never really have been able to do.
Right, you're developing a shorthand, but they're so good at their craft that they know how to get it done efficiently. How long was the shoot, Thomas? How many days did you have to shoot?
It was just under 7 weeks, and we had a COVID outbreak on set, which kind of shut us down for a bit. But it was roughly around 7 weeks.
Well, that's quite luxurious in today's world. I talk to a lot of independent filmmakers, and they have it in 3 weeks. I've had some do 9 days. I'm like, are you kidding me? How do you do a movie in 9 days? So yeah, that seems like a long time, but the film is so beautifully done. So that time that you had, even though you said you were under time constraints,
Yeah,
really showed up on the screen. The work that you
yeah.
put into it really shows up on the screen beautifully.
I mean, in some ways, you're right. In some ways, it was a large amount of time, but I think the reality of shooting an action film, and there were lots of action sequences in this, is that you need lots of time, and it's just very, very intensive, the work, to get the coverage and to get the details that you need to make those sequences work. So that was kind of our biggest challenge, really, and the fact that it was a period movie too. So you're always limited where you can shoot, where you can literally where you can point the camera. So they were two factors that definitely forced something out.
Mm.
How do you two work together? I mean, you co-wrote this and you co-directed it. So who does what role, and how does that work for the two of you? Charles,
Well,
you want to start, or Thomas? But either
yeah,
one.
we've been working together for years and years, and we sort of started working. I mean, our parents were both in the industry, so we've been in and around films since we were very, very little, and we kind of grew into working together organically. So it's sort of that's really how we've continued to work. I mean, we tend not to divide roles. We just really we talk to the actors together, we talk to the DP together, we keep it very open and conversational, and yeah, and we try to sort of gather a really close group of trusted collaborators around us, because one thing that is tougher about there being two of you is that you have to externalize part of the process, and that's not something if you're as working in a solo capacity, then you can hold all of those thoughts in, and that can, it becomes very important, we found, to have a really good core team around us. But there were times on this film, I mean, we used to muck around as teenagers making films, before, actually. I mean, God, I mean, when we were probably 11 and 14, we would make films, get our mum to be the sort of camera car driver and do kind of tracking shots and skateboard dollies and all that kind of stuff. And there were moments on this film where, the shooting Felicity in the darkroom, that really felt like we were back making films as kind of kids again, with that level of freedom, and we loved it.
How about for you, Thomas?
Uh,
Which do you have a preference? Do you prefer the writing or the directing, or well, what's the writing process like? I heard a little bit about your directing process. What's the writing process like?
Well, someone once said that. Someone once said, I think it was it Billy Wilder who said that when you're writing, you just want to be directing, and when you're directing, you just want to be writing.
I think it might be.
That we probably felt we understood that in some ways. There's always an element. There's always the frustration of when you're writing, you want to see it real, and then of course when you're actually doing it, it's like, oh, we just need 2 hours just to like rejig this slightly, but you don't have that. So that's always the tension, but it's probably a good tension to have for both.
It is. Well, you both work well together, obviously. And the proof is in this beautiful, wonderful film. I really do recommend it for everyone. It's just, the time you said you had to cut out, quite a few pages of this script, which I'm sure is very difficult to do, is to, cut up your baby that you've created, in a way, and make it shorter, but it's very taut, as I said earlier, up, on the top of the show. It's very action packed and it's very well put together. So I don't know if you needed more of those, the script to be any longer than it already was, but it's really well done. Where can people see Deadshot? Either one of you can answer that question.
You can see it. It's going out in theaters and on video on demand, I think. But
streaming from Friday.
Okay, great. Great. Well, everyone look for Deadshot. It's just really, there's so much to it. It's an excellent film. And thank you both for being on the show. I wish you much success with this film, and I look forward to having you back on your next project.
Thanks so much.
Jan.
Thank you.
Thanks.